welcome to the ICHAS podcast series. So it's a new podcast where we're going to be interviewing guests from a wide range of organisations that have been working with the college, and we're also going to interview members of the college. As well as that, we're also going to feature talks that are going to be held by the college over the next couple of weeks. So this is episode 1, and in the first episode I was lucky enough to have a chat with Dr. James Kinane, and James Kinane is currently working with MyMove Counselling. So for a bit of background, MyMove Counselling, they provide professional and private counselling, psychotherapy and addiction services, as well as clinical and academic supervision. The vision for MyMove Counselling is to provide easily accessible counselling and psychotherapy services to people in need of support without waiting lists or referrals. So they're providing counselling and psychotherapy services that deal with a wide range of issues that are facing people in modern Ireland, and their fully qualified therapists are accredited and regulated by the relevant professional bodies. So during this talk with James, we had a discussion behind the background for MyMove, and as well as that, we also had a discussion in around the practice placement aspect when it comes to MyMove, as many students who are in ICHAS are currently doing their placement there. And also we went through as well one or two of the topical areas, as in relation to MyMove Counselling, the two areas that they have a core focus is definitely in the realms of addiction and also in mental health. So here's the chat that I had with James. Thanks, James, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted.
And so just kind of maybe a little bit about MyMove Counselling, just kind of in around the organisation.
Okay, MyMove Counselling is actually 1 year old yesterday.
That's perfect time.
And so we had our happy birthday to us yesterday. And the idea behind establishing, well, two purposes really. One was to take a look at the issue around addiction and mental health. And it's really a challenge for many different institutions as to how they're trying to manage bringing these together. So we decided, look, we'll have a look at this as a challenge. See, can we? You're seldom dealing with addiction without dealing with some mental health issues, and you're seldom dealing with mental health issues that doesn't in some way either impact directly with the individual or with their family in terms of addiction. And so that was sort of our initial thinking. And then my other part of that, I suppose, was that my keen interest in work in teaching and lecturing and working with students and offering them a place where in their placement they get a first-hand insight into how these two entities would either work together or improve their skills around us with appropriate, as much as possible, supervision and ongoing development and reflection. And so those are the two things that really set this in motion for me. And following on from that, then of course the main areas that we are concerned about is the one-to-one counselling for the mental health issues. It could be anything from anxiety, depression, up across the way to bipolar, to borderline conditions, even other combination of issues for the individual and for their families. And that's on one side of it. And then we started with the addiction. And of course, I would be very familiar with the addiction because I've worked through for many years in the treatment centres and evaluate them. So when a person comes in we bring a person in for addiction, we bring in the family members, and then we start working with both. So the students that I have coming in, they're up for the challenge of individual counselling for around the mental health side of it, the combined stuff between mental health and addiction, and then of course the addiction itself. And then in the last 5 or 6 months, we put together a treatment program for addiction, an outpatient program basically, where people haven't either the time or the inclination or to go to residential treatment, which is usually take time out. You have to arrange the funding. So we put together a 12-week program that allows people to continue to work, stay in their community, stay attached to their families, and over a 12-week period, with the counsellors, we're able to bring them to a place of recovery. And so this is it's all in the embryo stage, I suppose, in so many ways, because we want to try innovative stuff, first around linking the mental health and the addiction, and then I want to try innovative stuff of developing a cohesive program to allow people to stay engaged with and connected with their community, while at the same time seeking treatment in a very non-threatening and a very compassionate environment. So that's kind of the basis of where we've come. I suppose we're just growing there. now we're at a stage where, you know, and quite a number of people have come through that program, and we're going into an aftercare process. And the traditional aftercare process for most people would be once a week attending face to face, you know, with others. What we're doing is we're providing the one-to-one counselling for the person over the next 9 months. We're also providing the evening for the family members once a week for 9 months, and we're also providing a group setting for the people in recovery on a weekly basis for 9 months. Because I really believe the aftercare really needs to be bedded down, and people really need support when they're actually getting well, as much as they need support when they're actually trying to get well.
So I suppose another question is like an average. So what would an average day be like for say a student who's on practice placement at MyMove Counselling, or would there be such a thing as an average day?
There isn't an average day, but we'll go something like this. The students are allocated 3 clients each, so they have their day, maybe their afternoon or their evening or their morning. We try to block them together so that people aren't traipsing in and out, coming up and down the tracks all the time. But they have their clients. Then they give their feedback then to one of us on the clients, you know. So we have you know, clinical feedback. The feedback then we process that as a team, as a couple of us, and then we give that feedback to the supervisor, to the student or the supervisee. In addition to that, from the point of view of support, each student in placement also they have their own external supervisor, as recommended by likes of ICHAS and so on and so forth, and other colleges. But we also supply an external supervisor as well for them. So they have an actual person attached to MyMove Counselling that has extensive experience that they go to once a fortnight. So they're actually processing externally, as well as their own individual supervisor. So they have two support structures, plus they have the treatment team supporting them internally, working through. But some of the cases are fine initially, and then eventually the emerging issues come up, and problems or families problems come up emerging, and that's where the student needs that additional support. So I really believe big time in supervision, and I really believe in supporting the students every which way possible, because they're eager to learn. They have all the skills. They've got 2 years or maybe 3, depending on ICAS, coming into this. And they're well able to. They have lots of ability, and it's just to provide as safe as possible an environment for them to exercise those skills, knowing that you're dealing with 2 entities. You're dealing with mental health and addiction. One can be difficult enough, but when you're dealing with, and you may even be dealing with 2 or 3 addictions, and you may be even doing 3 or 4 mental health issues within a family. And so a counsellor coming into MyMove is going to be challenged, but they're also going to be supported. Best I can.
And it was actually another question I had to ask was, looking to ask, how can like when it comes to how does practice placement with MyMove, can that benefit students in their application of theory to practice? Like you mentioned there, it's very diverse, but how does, say in particular with MyMove Counselling, how can it benefit them?
I suppose because I suppose initially there's a part that deals with addiction, and addiction is a complex phenomena, and I often say that, you know, when somebody is dealing with somebody's light depression or a bit of anxiety, that you have a bit of time and you can have a bit of, you know, you can pace it a bit easier. But with addiction, the stuff is coming at you so fast, and the clients, you know, they've had to live on the edge. So therefore, they operate at a very fast pace, and so the counsellor really gets to be challenged themselves, and there's a lot of space for their reflective practice. You know, what went on, how did it go on, and they're able to bring that back to us. So it really allows them to grow. They grow faster if they're up to it, if you could measure it, if you can measure it, but if they'll grow faster because the challenges in front of them are fairly substantial. Because the people coming in will have, they may have never had a chance in 30, 40 years to ever talk about anything. And they have so much to talk about and try and work through. That's why they have immediate support around them. So they will be, they'll be challenged. They'll grow a lot. The feedback so far from the students from the year, and I'm doing the appraisals at the moment, is that they're greatly challenged, because it's great. They're in the cold face of this, but they're not there alone, and they're never alone in a room, because a phone call away, a room away, there's a supervisor of some description or a manager that's going to support them and take them through any issues that come up. So that support, rather than just going into a placement, showing up for their hours, doing the placement, going home, they're actually walking with us all the way through. They're another pair of eyes that we have, and they have as well when they're going into these rooms.
And then, so in general, the experience the students have had with you so far, it sounds like it's like you nearly have to hit the ground running in terms of just how diverse it can be. So how's their experience of it been?
Yeah, you see, initially, I suppose when we started, we didn't expect such a diverse group of people. We didn't expect to be so busy. We have up in, I don't know, I think there's 13 or 15 counsellors at the moment. We've phenomenal for 1 year's work. It's phenomenal. And we didn't expect, I originally expected to have maybe 1 or 2 students, but but needs met, and then we were able to provide more and more and more. So yeah, it has been challenging. It has been good. And as you can imagine, if you have that spectrum of people coming at you, you're going to get such a variety of people. And I suppose the challenge for us often is to make sure that we can get a student or a counsellor as near as possible to match the clientele that's coming in. Some people need a lot of tender care. Some people need that kind of confrontational style. Some people, there's so much variables, and to get so that the counsellor isn't blown away, and is able to pace themselves with the client, bring the client along to where the client needs to go as they open up and share.
And even say, like you mentioned, it's mental health, it's addiction, both areas that have been up for debate a lot recently. Are there any particular areas that are very topical or that have come to light since MyMove Counselling has actually started?
You see, I suppose some of the biggest areas that are coming to light are young people in general trying to cope in the aftermath of the COVID. Their very identity has been shot through, and people have taken different strands on how to manage it. For a lot of young people, it's cocaine and it's addiction and it's all that behavior. For other people, it's become really mental health issues. People are presenting quite young that somehow or another they become somehow detached, are trying to reattach themselves back into where they were 2 or 3 years ago, and that's a kind of an emerging phenomena. And you say to yourself, but they're young, why wouldn't they adjust? But I don't think we actually know the full extent of what COVID has actually done. And it doesn't matter whether you're a young person or an elderly person or a middle-aged person. It has done some stuff to people in their ability to socialize, to connect, to form friendships, to form intimacy, and so on. And I think that people need an adjustment process, and that's why probably quite a number of the counselling services are quite busy at the moment, because people need that. It might be 6 sessions or 8 sessions, but they need to connect back in. And you can't do it at home, and you can't do it with your friends because they're wondering, is there something the matter with you? They probably have the same stuff going on. They don't understand it either. So actually, there's other issues. There are emerging issues. And for young men, particularly their identity, their identity in the past might be shaped around the GEA or playing game, the strength. And when that was all deprived from them in the last couple of years there as well, they're now struggling with their identity. They're hitting 25, 30. And so how do you soothe that? How do you medicate that? You take cocaine or something and so on. And so there's all of that going on as well. But we're paying the price we're only beginning to pay the price, really, the second phase, dealing with COVID,
No, and you've highlighted a lot of stuff there, even like the increased use of, and like even the increased use of drugs in public settings. Like it's been mentioned, say, with people kind of getting back outdoors, it's almost like it's the last 2 years has been this big pressure valve, and because they're going back out, it's almost like they have to release it some way. And for many people, that is the way. And it's like, be it through, like you mentioned, drug addiction. I mean, even hearing violence. There's a lot of those kind of things that are happening. That the 2 years really, it's been pent up, and this is it's the approach, it's the channel that people are looking at to actually just release it.
And it is in the sense that we are becoming aware of the whole issue of domestic violence and how that was sort of managed up to the time of the COVID, and then everybody had to stay at home, and then everybody went to the off license and the drinking started, and it all escalated at home, and we had quite a number of incidents around that in the middle of COVID there, where high incidents of domestic violence and so on. So how we manage ourselves, I suppose, as a society, and how we manage ourselves as a family and a unit has been under stress for a long time. And there is huge stress to the living anyway. But if you stop someone from walking straight down to the park or walk, that walk 3 miles out the road, you can't walk 4 miles out the road. All of a sudden people are very restricted. I think that has impacted quite a lot on and increased some of these issues that people are struggling with.
So if anybody wants to learn more about MyMove Counselling, where can they find out additional information?
There's a webpage, MyMove Counselling, and there'll be, they go on that. There's a couple of numbers there for. We have an office in a centre in Limerick, and we have one in Tipperary Town. And as I said, we're open to pretty much 7 days a week, really nearly, and at any time you can contact us. We do quite a lot of work with families and family programs. So because we recognise that the mental health isn't just an individual issue, it's often a family, and it's often travels in the family, and so also there's the addictions. And so we spend quite a lot of work around supporting, group work for families and for family members and so on. So, there's a lot of work. There's a lot going on. There's a lot there for people that they shouldn't feel alone. And of course, that's what people feel quite the most of all when they're dealing with it and struggling with it, with either mental health or addiction. They feel nobody else understands them or knows what's going on. And rather than someone feeling very isolated, feeling suicidal, feeling lost, for God's sake, pick up the phone and just look. There's a counsellor there going to talk to them, and they'll see them within a very short time. The big part for me, I suppose, really is the power of the students, their capacity, their knowledge, their insight, but their capacity to and willingness to really engage and take walk with a person. And I suppose maybe it's enthusiasm, maybe it's their first time doing it or second time doing it, but to see somebody, I'm seeing them bringing people along so that wow, after 8 or 10, 12, 14 sessions, somebody has actually changed their lives. They've been able to change their lives because someone was able to walk with them and understand them and hear them. And that's really big stuff for us.
Thanks again, James, for joining me. Yeah, it was great to chat as well on
Thanks ever so much.
Counselling.
Thanks ever so much. Look forward to seeing you again. Enjoy the day.
And thanks again to James for joining me. And if you want to find out more about MyMove Counselling, be sure to check out their website. And that's it for the first episode. So be sure to stay tuned over the next couple of weeks as we will have guests on. And as well as that, we're also going to be sharing some of the talks that are going to be taking place in the college over the next while.